The chamber of the Sealer Dominion vibrated with a quiet confidence as the highest-ranking commanders gathered around a suspended holographic model of the Milky Way. Their eyes shimmered with predatory satisfaction as they reviewed the final projections of the upcoming conflict. Human resistance, according to every analytic engine they trusted, would collapse almost instantly. Their strategists outlined a timeline that bordered on arrogance: 3 hours for full orbital control, 20 minutes to disable Earth's planetary grid, and less than 10 minutes to shatter every human defensive cluster. They spoke as though the entire campaign had already concluded, celebrating victory before their warships even ignited their drives. To them, humanity was not a rival, only a temporary inconvenience delaying their expansion. High Strategist Vaylor stood at the center, projecting unwavering certainty. He presented figures, fleet comparisons, demographic analyses, and psychological assessments that painted humans as inexperienced, fragile, and incapable of coordinating on a galactic scale. Their wars were confined to a single planet. Their ships were slow. Their technology outdated. Their strategic doctrines outdated by centuries. Their emotional volatility, he argued, would break them long before the first bombardment reached their orbit. The Council accepted his claims with ease, finding comfort in the idea that this new species posed no threat to their dominance. A few voices attempted to caution against underestimating a civilization whose development defied standard models. Reports mentioned unorthodox engineering feats, unusual biological adaptability, and a historical tendency to advance dramatically under pressure. But these warnings were dismissed as irrelevant outliers. The majority preferred the narrative that reinforced their superiority. They believed their empire's long history of swift conquests justified their assumptions. Failure, in their eyes, was impossible. The galaxy had never produced an adversary capable of resisting them. Why would this isolated, seemingly primitive species be the exception? The vote to proceed with the invasion passed without hesitation. Massive fleets began mobilizing from fortress worlds, shipyards, and deep space staging posts. Carriers the size of small moons loaded assault craft in perfect formation. Planet crackers charged their reactors in anticipation of demonstrating overwhelming force. Tens of thousands of warships aligned into layered strike groups, each designed to crush planetary defenses with surgical precision. As the command signal flashed across the fleet, the Dominion's admirals bowed in triumph, congratulating themselves for completing what they believed would be their final expansion campaign for this quadrant. Diplomatic channels were opened briefly, not to negotiate, but to deliver a standardized ultimatum. It demanded immediate human surrender, removal of military assets, and unconditional resource tribute. The message, sent with calculated arrogance, assumed humans would submit rather than challenge an empire with such overwhelming firepower. When no answer returned, the Council interpreted silence as fear rather than defiance. They convinced themselves the humans were panicking, scrambling, or cowering behind their thin defensive lines. Their misinterpretation reinforced their confidence, blinding them to a truth they never imagined existed. As the fleets prepared to jump toward the Sol system, the Council's analysts generated final projections reaffirming their timeline of human defeat. Every predictive model agreed: the war would be over in hours. Victory was inevitable. Their empire would expand once more, feeding their belief that no species could match their strategic mastery. Their celebrations echoed through the chamber as the invasion order was finalized. Yet beneath their certainty, a small anomaly lingered in the raw data. It hinted at something concealed, something their scans failed to categorize. A faint distortion in the background noise surrounding the human sphere of influence. It was dismissed as a sensor glitch, an irrelevant irregularity. No one considered the possibility that this distortion represented the single variable none of their models had accounted for, a species that hid its strength deliberately, waiting for the moment when arrogance would lead its enemies into a trap they couldn't escape. The Council had predicted human defeat with absolute conviction. They did not realize they had miscalculated the one force in the galaxy capable of overturning fate in minutes. Across Earth's hidden command networks, the moment the Sealer Dominion fleet signatures appeared on deep-range sensors, Every classified protocol humanity had spent decades refining activated without a single broadcast or public announcement. The world's surface remained calm, but beneath that calm moved an infrastructure designed for a threat exactly like this one. What the Dominion interpreted as disorganization was, in truth, deliberate silence. Humanity had mastered the art of vanishing from enemy detection long before it ever met a galactic rival. Defense Command initiated Black Dawn, a contingency created by nations that once disagreed on everything yet understood the price of unpreparedness. All civilian channels shifted to encrypted modes. Orbital stations redirected power to dormant systems known only to select personnel. Across the outer colonies, automated facilities began transmitting decoy signals to confuse alien tracking algorithms. The Dominion believed they were watching a species scrambling. They didn't know humanity had rehearsed these steps hundreds of times. Every major power had contributed to building the real fleet, a force that had never appeared on any public registry or international treaty document. Most alien observers assumed Earth's visible warships represented the full extent of its defenses. They had no knowledge of the thousands of vessels hidden in asteroid belts, stationed in gravitational blind spots, or docked inside hollowed moons masked by magnetic distortions. They couldn't detect engines designed to leave no emissions trace, nor did they understand humanity's techniques for folding communication signatures into cosmic background noise. Within minutes, encrypted orders reached commanders scattered across the system. Stealth cruisers powered up cold drive reactors, activating weapons systems that had remained dormant for years. Quantum relays streamed battle plans to every fleet group simultaneously without emitting detectable pulses. The Dominion's prediction models had labeled humans incapable of unified command, but those models had never witnessed humanity under existential threat. Every government had already agreed that if an off-world empire declared war, the chain of command became singular. Rivalries dissolved instantly. Debate ceased. Survival replaced politics. Human engineers monitored the incoming armada with clinical precision, comparing its formation to simulations they had prepared long before the Dominion had even identified Earth in their records. While alien planners believed they were initiating a surprise attack, humans had predicted the exact approach corridor the invaders would use months earlier. Orbital defense arrays adjusted their barrels accordingly, ready to fire on trajectories calculated before the enemy even entered the system. The psychological assessments the Dominion relied on had portrayed humans as emotionally volatile. They didn't understand that volatility paired with discipline created a uniquely dangerous combination. Fear sharpened human focus. Anger fueled resolve. Hope drove innovation. When threatened, humans didn't scatter, they converged. Every soldier in the fleet understood that the Dominion's confidence came from ignorance, and ignorance was an advantage worth exploiting fully. Ground Command reviewed incoming data with growing clarity. Alien warships outnumbered visible human forces by an enormous margin, but numerical superiority meant nothing when facing a species that excelled at turning constraints into leverage. Human data scientists fed real-time information into adaptive tactical algorithms that rewrote battlefield responses within seconds. These systems didn't just react, they anticipated. They studied enemy movement patterns, predicted formation drift, and calculated weaknesses embedded in rigid Dominion doctrine. The aliens believed their strategies were flawless. Human analysis revealed structural vulnerabilities they never considered. Off-world colonies that the Dominion dismissed as insignificant activated deep space sentinels armed with long-range kinetic projectors capable of firing from distances no alien fleet had ever accounted for. Drones and cryogenic storage ignited their microreactors and formed reconnaissance webs around key approach vectors. The entire solar system transformed into a layered trap built from thousands of independent components moving in silent coordination. What the Dominion misinterpreted as human hesitation was deliberate composure. Every action served the same purpose: let the enemy enter deep enough to commit fully, then reveal the truth. Humanity wasn't preparing to endure a siege. It was shaping the battlefield for a counterstrike designed to end the war before the invaders understood they were outmatched. As the alien fleet closed in, humanity's hidden armadas finished aligning into positions no external sensor could identify. The Council believed Earth's defenses were weak, fragmented, and outdated. They were about to learn that everything they knew about humanity was built on illusions crafted with intention. The trap was set, the timing calculated, and the first move belonged to the species the Dominion thought would collapse in hours. They had no idea the coming minutes would rewrite their entire understanding of warfare. The Dominion Armada crossed the threshold of the solar system with ceremonial precision, maintaining rigid battle formations that had intimidated countless civilizations before humanity. Their commanders projected flawless confidence as they advanced, broadcasting internal announcements celebrating the final expansion of their empire's frontier. They expected resistance, but only enough to entertain their admirals. Everything in their doctrine reinforced the belief that humans would react unpredictably, panic quickly, and crumble once the first wave reached Earth's outer defenses. Their sensors swept the system repeatedly, searching for organized fleet structures or defensive clusters. Nothing appeared. Every scan returned clean, almost suspiciously clean, yet they interpreted the emptiness as confirmation of their predictions. They believed humans were concealing their fear by remaining silent. They assumed Earth's military forces were scattered or attempting last-minute preparation. The absence of response fed their arrogance rather than triggering caution. Then the first anomaly appeared at the edge of their vanguard. A faint distortion pulsed behind them, so small the fleet's primary AI dismissed it as noise. But a junior officer aboard one of the forward cruisers noticed a gravitational ripple inconsistent with natural drift. Before she could forward the report, the distortion expanded into a silent eruption of shimmering signatures. Thousands of human warships materialized with mathematical precision, emerging from quantum-silent positions the Dominion never detected. The fleet didn't announce itself. It didn't broadcast warnings. It simply appeared at point-blank range with weapons already charged. Chaos erupted across the Dominion vanguard as their carefully layered formation collapsed under the shock of encirclement. Their rear ranks, once considered the safest positions, found themselves staring directly at the barrels of human destroyers equipped with systems they had no classification for. The sealer commanders attempted to issue retreat protocols, but human ships moved faster than their command chains could update orders. The enemy they had expected to chase was now sitting inside their perimeter with flawless coordination. The first strike shattered their confidence. Human railguns fired kinetic slugs that traveled at velocities the Dominion believed impossible for non-relativistic combat. Entire capital ships disintegrated before their shields registered incoming fire. EMP lances pierced their defensive grids, scrambling every unshielded circuit across dozens of vessels. The Dominion had always assumed kinetic weaponry was primitive, yet the humans wielded it with a level of refinement that bypassed their most advanced countermeasures. Their shield modulation frequencies, once considered unbreakable, split open like thin glass. Panic spiraled through their communications channels. Officers shouted conflicting commands as tactical displays updated disastrously fast. No one could understand how a species with supposedly inferior technology achieved maneuvers that defied every military model in the Dominion archives. Human ships shifted formation in ways impossible for their own fleets, curving around gravitational pockets, weaving between firing lanes, and striking targets the moment vulnerability appeared. Their tactical AI systems attempted to predict human vectors, but every calculation broke under the sheer speed of adaptive response. Human decisions updated faster than Dominion algorithms could recalculate. Distress calls flooded the command network. Crews reported boarding drones bypassing bulkheads, targeting weapon control nodes with surgical precision. Others described microswarms slicing through armor plating as if it were soft alloy. Some never finished their reports. Silence replaced entire sectors of the fleet as ships vanished from sensors in bursts of white-hot destruction. The Dominion Command flagship attempted to regain control, broadcasting desperate rallying orders. But the battlefield was no longer a structure they understood. Human formations moved like a living organism, striking simultaneously from multiple vectors, withdrawing before counterfire could land, and reappearing with perfect timing. The invaders watched their massive numerical advantage dissolve into meaningless fragments. Their pride, reinforced by centuries of victories, offered no protection against an enemy that turned invisibility into an art and precision into a weapon. As the Vanguard crumbled, the flagship's long-range sensors detected something even more terrifying. Beyond the swarm of human attack groups, a second wave emerged, larger, heavier, and radiating power signatures far beyond anything the Dominion believed humans could generate. These were not cruisers or stealth frigates. These were the true warships of humanity, revealing themselves only after the invaders had already lost control of the battlefield. The Dominion had expected humans to fight for hours before collapsing. Instead, they realized their timeline was backward. Their defeat had already begun the moment they entered the system. The minutes ahead would not mark human surrender, they would mark the collapse of an empire that had never imagined humanity capable of rewriting the rules of war. Human dreadnoughts advanced from the outer dark with a presence so immense that Dominion sensors struggled to categorize their signatures. These vessels dwarfed every ship currently engaged in the battle, projecting gravitational fields strong enough to distort the readings of nearby cruisers. Their hulls radiated structured energy patterns the Dominion had never encountered, each fluctuation indicating weapon systems capable of rewriting the principles the invaders relied on. The sudden appearance of these giants sent waves of confusion through the already fractured command network, overwhelming officers who had barely regained control after the first ambush. Dominion strategists attempted to assemble firing lines, but the arrival of the dreadnoughts disrupted every calculation. Human battle doctrine revealed itself in layers that escalated with terrifying precision. If the stealth fleets had dismantled the Vanguard, these towering vessels existed to erase any illusion that the Dominion still possessed leverage. Their formation unfolded with perfect synchronization, each dreadnought locking into position with millisecond accuracy. The dark plates of their hulls opened in controlled sequence, exposing weapon rails, energy conduits, and massive spines humming with stored power. Not a single broadcast accompanied their advance. Humanity continued its cold, surgical silence. The first demonstration of their true capability came from Project Horizon, a system the Dominion had no terminology for. As the dreadnoughts aligned with Earth's star, solar-fed particle beams charged through their conduits and fired in unbroken columns of incandescent force. These beams sliced across the battlefield, cleaving destroyers and carriers alike into drifting fragments. Shields designed to withstand conventional energy blasts collapsed instantly. The beams didn't explode, they punctured, cauterized, and erased. Entire wings of Dominion ships vanished in the opening strike, leaving only expanding clouds of ionized debris. Before the invaders could regroup, Earth's orbital arrays activated. Railgun platforms hidden within magnetic shadows fired salvos that moved faster than predictive software could process. Each slug punched through several Dominion warships before friction converted the metal into accelerated plasma. What remained of those ships dispersed into fading streaks of vapor. Dominion tacticians tried shifting shield frequencies, but every attempt produced identical outcomes. No frequency blocked a weapon that relied on raw velocity rather than directed energy. Gravity well warheads launched from human carriers detonated next, collapsing sections of space into temporary pockets of distorted mass. Dominion vessels caught inside these wells lost orientation, propulsion, and firing solutions. Some imploded under their own structural weight. Others spiraled helplessly into the path of human fire. Admirals watching the tactical feed understood the horror first. Their fleet no longer controlled movement. Every maneuver they attempted only deepened the chaos. The battle clock marked only minutes since the dreadnoughts arrived, yet half the Dominion armada was gone. Survivors attempted a full retreat, but humanity anticipated every vector. Human cruisers accelerated past them with unnatural agility, intercepting escape routes and disrupting jump drives with concentrated EMP bursts. The Dominion had always believed humans lacked advanced interdiction systems. That assumption collapsed when their retreat corridors blinked out one by one. Communication channels filled with shattered voices reporting impossible weaponry, unreadable formations, and ships that moved as if guided by instinct rather than engines. Fleet Command tried issuing orders to regroup near the flagship, but the flagship itself buckled under a concentrated volley from 3 dreadnoughts firing in sequence. Its armor peeled open like thin alloy, Its core shattered, and its signal died mid-transmission. When the command node disappeared, the fleet's remaining structure dissolved entirely. Human losses remained non-existent. Every tactical screen displayed the same unsettling truth: humanity had executed the entire operation with absolute precision, without hesitation, without visible strain. The Dominion had entered the system expecting a prolonged conquest. Instead, they had stumbled into a demonstration of unmatched strategic maturity. 6 minutes after the first dreadnought fired, the Dominion Armada ceased to exist as a fighting force. Broken ships drifted without propulsion. Survivors powered down weapons, broadcasting surrender signals in fragmented bursts. Intercepting drones surrounded the remnants, scanning for threats before allowing escape vectors to open. Then humanity finally transmitted a message, brief, measured, and undeniable in intent. War concluded. Do not return. It carried no anger, no victory declaration, no negotiation offer. It carried certainty. The Dominion understood instantly that resistance was futile. The species they believed would fall in hours had ended their campaign in minutes, and the message marked the beginning of a new era defined by a power they had failed to recognize until it was too late. The return of the shattered Dominion remnants triggered a level of panic their council had never experienced. The survivors arrived in broken formations, many drifting under minimal power, their hulls scarred by weapons the Dominion lacked any framework to analyze. Rescue teams pulled trembling officers from fractured vessels, each one struggling to articulate the nightmare they had encountered. Their testimonies overflowed with contradictions: ships appearing out of empty space, weapons that ignored shields entirely, dreadnoughts that bent gravity itself, and a coordinated silence that felt more terrifying than any threat. What disturbed the council most was not the scale of destruction, but the unshakable certainty in every survivor's voice: humanity had never been the weaker side. Commanders attempted to reconstruct the battle using fragments of damaged recordings. Every frame revealed catastrophe unfolding faster than their systems could process. The council chamber dimmed as the footage displayed human formations moving with impossible cohesion, coordinating without detectable signals. Fleets that should have required minutes to maneuver pivoted instantly. Weapons fired with accuracies Dominion algorithms classified as statistically impossible. Their predictive models, once considered perfect, collapsed under the weight of new data that contradicted centuries of proven doctrine. Nothing in their archives explained what they witnessed. Arguments broke out among council members as they scrambled to reinterpret their assumptions. Some blamed corrupted intelligence, others accused their strategists of arrogance. A few suggested humanity had been hiding its capabilities deliberately, biding time until provoked. The oldest members, however, understood the deeper implication. This was not simply a military defeat. It was the revelation of a power whose strategic depth surpassed anything the Dominion had encountered. If humanity had chosen conquest, no empire would have survived. The destruction of the Dominion Armada wasn't proof of human aggression, it was proof of restraint. As debates escalated, a sharp harmonic pulse filled the chamber, silencing every delegate. The central holographic display flickered, then stabilized into an image none of their security systems recognized. A human figure appeared, calm, composed, and illuminated by a faint blue glow. No one understood how the transmission bypassed every firewall, encryption barrier, and isolation protocol. Panic spread as technicians scrambled to shut it down, only to discover they had lost control of their own systems. The human diplomat spoke with a composure that cut deeper than any weapon. He offered no preamble, no apology, and no display of triumph. His voice carried the same measured certainty that had defined humanity's silence throughout the battle. He acknowledged the invasion, acknowledged the annihilation of the Dominion fleet, and delivered a single warning without emotion or flourish. If humanity is threatened again, minutes will be generous. The transmission ended abruptly, restoring full control to Dominion systems as if humanity had never been present. Delegates stared at one another, unable to process how their most secure network had been infiltrated with such ease. The realization settled heavily over the chamber. The display had not been intended to intimidate. It had been a courtesy, a demonstration of how easily things could have escalated had humanity chosen differently. Fear spread beyond the council as news of the defeat reached Dominion territory. Civilians, soldiers, and governors alike demanded new policies, urging leadership to avoid provoking a species whose capabilities defied imperial understanding. Analysts revised strategic doctrines, replacing long-standing assumptions about technological superiority with directives focused entirely on preventing conflict with humanity. Treaties that once outlined expansionist ambitions were quietly suspended. Exploration initiatives near human space halted immediately. Across the galaxy, whispers began to circulate. Empires, syndicates, and alliances that once viewed the Dominion as untouchable now reassessed their position. Word of a species capable of ending a war in minutes reshaped political dynamics, shifting alliances and halting aggressive campaigns. The Dominion, once a symbol of unstoppable power, became a cautionary tale. Humanity had not asked for tribute, territory, or submission. It simply chose to ensure its survival with unmatched decisiveness. The Council understood this truth with absolute clarity. They had misjudged the one species that never surrendered, adapted beyond prediction, and struck with precision unmatched in known history. The galaxy would remember the lesson etched into the remnants of their fallen armada. They had predicted human defeat within hours. Instead, they witnessed their own downfall in minutes.